Joe has had his moments. 2 balls and 2 strikes on him. Here's the pitch on the way. A swing and a belt. Left field. Way back. Blue Jays win it. The Blue Jays are World Series champions as Joe Carter hits a 3-run home run in the 9th inning, and the Blue Jays have repeated as World Series champions. Touch 'em all, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life.
Excited for Toronto to finally win it big, right? So it's just like you're over the moon. You're excited for the city, for your fans, and yeah, it was fantastic.
When Jose Bautista hit his home run, what do you think was a bigger home run, Jose's or Joe Carter's?
Well, Jose, his has certain style, but it was just kind of telling the world that Toronto's arrived, that we're still in the hunt, and it's tough call to be honest.
Shai, what are your memories on the Joe Carter home run? Where were you? What were you doing? Do you have any recollections of the Joe Carter home run?
Yeah, very vivid ones. I was with some friends, and I was in high school at the time. I think we were in a friend's basement, maybe in the living room, but I think in his basement watching a game. Big group of us, and then Joe Carter hit it, and we went wild, and we all hopped in the car and tried to get as far down Yonge Street as we could to join the celebrations that we won. And, it was a really cool moment. We were big Jays fans growing up, and a lot of emotions culminated in '92. Frustrations finally boiled over, or were erased when the Jays eventually won their first World Series championship, and then to see them do it 2 years in a row on a Joe Carter home run, it's just a great moment.
Yeah, I understand you've spoken to Joe Carter about it. Any recollections or reflections from what he told you, or?
Well, a lot of really interesting anecdotes from that story. I've gotten to speak to Joe about it for my book, and talk to a lot of other people about it too. What I really find interesting is just how his thought process went over the course of that at bat. The Blue Jays started rallying against Mitch Williams. Ricky gets on, and then creates all this pressure, and Paul Mahler follows, and he has this dream about being the guy who wins the World Series, but then he says to himself, well, I gotta reel myself back in and have a good at bat. And Joe Carter is like, okay, I'm gonna make sure that I handle this, and he gets fooled really badly on a breaking ball, and he thinks there's no way that Mitch Williams is gonna double up on that pitch. He's gonna throw the fastball, and then Mitch Williams ends up doubling up on the breaking ball. And then Joe Carter, because of that, has his timing right and takes a ball that he normally would have hooked into foul territory, is able to get it just over the wall. So I think that's really cool. And I remember talking to Pat Henkin about it. He was in the dugout at the time. It was like, there was no way that ball's staying fair, but he managed to keep it fair because he had his timing a little bit different. So it's pretty cool to kind of be able to get some of the insight into
I was working for TSN at the time, and I was doing the reporting pre- and post-game. So we had gotten to the point where we thought the game was about over. So I was actually in the tunnel watching it on TV with all the other media people that were going to have access to the field when the game was over. So I saw it not live, but I saw it on television, and it was kind of mixed emotions. But at the same time, it was an exciting moment. And once that home run was hit, of course, they didn't let us down for immediately. We had to wait until everybody celebrated, and they had the celebration at home, and then we got on the field. But I could have been at home watching on TV where I was. I was down in the tunnel in the bowels of the stadium watching it from a television perspective.
So I'm guessing at that point you couldn't actually hear what you were watching on TV, just with the sound of the audience, right?
Absolutely. It wasn't like I was inside. And when I was here for the Bautista bat flip home run, Pat and I were actually sitting right about here, just downstairs in the press room, in the football press box at that time. So we had a much more live experience of it and shared it just the way everybody else did. So it was much different. But the Joe Carter home run, obviously, the most iconic home run in Blue Jays franchise history.
For sure. I guess you just answered my next question, but I was going to say, where would you rank it compared to the Bautista one? I mean, obviously, for a young kid like me, I was born a couple weeks after the Joe Carter home run was hit, so I would put the I would put the Bautista home run at the top. I was actually here too. I was here as a fan at that time, but where would you kind of rank them? I guess Joe Carter is still number one for you, right?
Robbie Alomar's home run in the championship series against Oakland was probably as dramatic as any home run because of who he hit it off of. You know, two Hall of Famers going head to head of Dennis Eckersley. Extra inning home run, he hit it, won the game, and it was a kind of a comeback game. And the thing that's really interesting about that is, again, I was working for TSN at the time, and I was a sideline reporter. So I went into the Oakland clubhouse afterwards, and I literally stayed there till the last reporter left and watched Dennis Eckersley answer every single question every reporter had. I mean, he was heartbroken. He let his team down. He said it's the worst time of his life, but he never, ever turned his back on the media until everybody had their questions, and he answered every single one of them.